Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
It's the Football Playbook with your boy, RIC, and a place to be. Ric Serritella, buckle up for 2 straight hours of power here on this 82nd episode of the TFP with RIC, broadcasting live from New Jersey, the Jersey Shore. Woo! Around the universe, it's the global show. Where you at, in the front, in the back, right here on the JAKIB Sports YouTube channel. It's 12 hours of power from start to finish here on the network. And of course, counting you down to Saints Week. Got a good one lined up for you here today. Gonna have Dane Vandernack coming up at 10:30 a.m. just a little bit. Take a little break from the Eagles and Saints preview and get into some NFL draft. All the bowl game action. God, if you were up late last night, we caught a couple of good ones. We'll get into some of the bowl game mania, some prospects that the Eagles fans can keep an eye on here. 11 o'clock, going to check in with our good friend Neil Stratton from InsideTheLeague.com. Neil is based down in New Orleans, a lifetime Who Dat Nation fan, and he's got his finger on the pulse when it comes to the Saints, the NFL draft. I know he's heading down to Texas for the College Gridiron Showcase, which is another all-star game that I used to be involved with. We'll touch base with Neil on that. And then that'll be at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then at 11:30, we're going to have our good friend RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com. We tried to pop him up last week with the holidays and the Eagles and Cowboys week. It was a hectic schedule. The Dallas Cowgirls in action tonight against the Tennessee Titans. So we'll recap the Eagles Cowboys with RJ. And, of course, preview Thursday Night Football over on Amazon Prime. So, jam-packed show with you here today. We get to dabble a little bit with some NFL draft, college bowl games. But first and foremost, you're 13-2 Philadelphia Eagles. And I've been having some conversations with those who are close with the organization. I'll tell you what, guys, I'm not here to set off the alarms. I'm not here to pull the fire alarms or create panic like some of you think I'm here to do. What I'm here is to keep it real. And I'll tell you what, this is the biggest, I hate to call it a trap game because I don't think it's a trap game where the Eagles are not taking it seriously. But I'll tell you what, I feel uneasy about the Saints game. I feel like, considering all the circumstances and situations on this roster, on this team, I am very concerned, and I'll get into why. The matchups. But first, we've got injury news, and it's a long one. So, hey, shout out to all the listeners, the chat room people, TB, the real GOAT, TK, Minshew Mania. We'll get into that. Adams exploits, of course. It's a double chin strap affair. Philly 559, William Stark. By the way, the tailgate takeover, January 1st, this Sunday. I hear it's going to be like 60 degrees. We'll get into the slot, Sean S. and Josiah Scott. And we'll take all these injuries, we'll break them down and talk about the impact and analysis of it all. Let's start right up at top. The two big ones, to me, none bigger than Jalen Hurts. And so he was not a participant in practice yesterday. I don't think I'm breaking news here. While it hasn't been officially reported, my understanding is Jalen Hurts will not play on Sunday. So pretty reliable sources, those close to the team, tell me Jalen Hurts will not play this Sunday. So it will be, TK, another week of Minshew mania. And, I've probably been a little bit tougher on Flint than most. And, I expected Philadelphia to win that ball game against Dallas. I really did. Now, I don't think it was Gardner Minshew's fault. Injuries played a role. Maybe rust had a little bit to do with it. I will say he did get better as the game went on. And I do think Gardner will play better this week. But the problem is the designed runs are out of the playbook with Gardner Minshew. The problem is by the end of the game there, Dallas didn't even respect the RPO. They were just blitzing after Gardner. They were coming at him. They had no respect for the RPO. So the designed runs, the threat of having your quarterback take the ball is eliminated. So that's a big deal when you're game planning for the Eagles. That's out of the playbook. Also, he had a couple nice passes downfield, but the deep ball threat is not even close to what Jalen Hurts brings to the table. And Hurts is as good of a deep ball thrower as there is in the National Football League. Gardner Minshew just isn't that guy. And he missed a couple throws on this past week. I'll tell you what, I saw Marshawn Lattimore might return. This Saints secondary is good. Bradley Roby, Alontae Taylor, Lattimore coming back. This is a very good Saints secondary, even minus Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So, to me, you are going to see Gardner Minshew start and finish this game, hopefully, this Sunday against the Saints, who mathematically are still alive to win the NFC South. So Jalen Hurts is out, according to my sources. Lane Johnson is out for the regular season. Now, we were informed yesterday that Lane will put off the surgery for this abdomen tear. It's a borderline hernia. It doesn't guarantee that he'll be able to play. What it means is Lane is going to give it a go. He's going to put off the surgery because that would definitely rule him out for the playoffs. He's going to put his best foot forward. Nobody is questioning the toughness of Lane Johnson. It's just a matter of at what point are you hurting the team? If you can't, like Lane Johnson at 85, 90%, probably still a better option than Andre Dillard or Jack Driscoll. Now, at what point does the tear or the strain limit him and cause him to be a hindrance? That's going to be up to Lane Johnson. And Jason Kelce yesterday was asked about it. He said, everything starts with your core for an offensive lineman. So this is a very serious injury. Kelce said, I don't want to talk about anybody else's business, anybody else's status, anybody else's injury, but it's a serious injury. Yeah, very serious. I am ruling Lane Johnson out for the playoffs. If he comes back, that's bonus football as far as I'm concerned. I don't expect or anticipate Lane Johnson to be readily available for the playoffs. I think he'll give it a go January 20th. Not sure how far he'll go, but we shall see. It's a big effing deal. James Bradbury called him a warrior. Jordan Mailata said it's that dog mentality. Jack Driscoll said Lane's a freak of nature and a team player. And so you wonder also, like, could this be the end of Lane Johnson in an Eagles uniform? Like, how much can this guy take? The concussions. Didn't he have a shoulder? Now it's the tear. Like, maybe he's saying, hey, you know what? Let's ride out in the sunset. Let's go get ourselves a ring. I know this. Eagles are going to need some offensive line help come the offseason. So, Lane Johnson will not play this week. Miles Sanders, sticking to the offense, suddenly pops up on the injury report. Did not practice yesterday. Miles Sanders now has a knee injury. We've talked about it. The durability with this guy. I'll tell you, the timing for Miles Sanders is terrible. Between fumbling the last 2 games, being relegated to the doghouse, kind of, sort of, and now the knee injury, he is questionable. 50-50. Game time decision. Miles Sanders. Despite his recent woes, this is a big deal because now, against the Saints, unlike the Cowboys game, you enter the game potentially with the backup backfield. You'll have your backup quarterback. There's a chance you'll have your backup running back. And it'll be interesting to see who gets the start. Because Gainwell is the quote-unquote backup, but in these kinds of situations, we've seen them, Boston Scott, leapfrog Gainwell and start. Now, Scott's returning kicks. I don't know if the Eagles want to do that. This backfield is going to look a lot different, and you don't have Lane Johnson. Completely different deal, right? Like, we knew Jalen was out going into Dallas. This is a whole different scenario. Hurts is out. Miles Sanders might be out. Lane Johnson, we know, is out. Little bit different nature of the beast here. Oh, by the way, Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, the only pair of teammates in the entire league. Only teammates in the entire NFL with double-digit touchdowns. That whole equation is wiped out this week. 20-something touchdowns rushing, wiped out. And I saw the Eagles are doing historical things on the ground. We talk about this record-setting season. By far, the greatest Philadelphia Eagles team in franchise history if they run the table. They got to run the table, but man, they will have the most rushing touchdowns in the modern day era. In the modern day era, if they get 3 more rushing touchdowns, the 2022 Eagles will surpass the 1976 Steelers for the most rushing touchdowns in a single season. Pretty impressive. And yes, what does it mean, Gil Louis? Sermon will maybe be activated this week. I don't know who starts. I know Gainwell and Scott will be in line for more touches. And I would assume Trey Sermon gets activated should Miles Sanders be out. And he did not practice yesterday due to a knee injury. Not looking good. Not looking good for Miles Sanders. Now, before we go into the defensive side of the ball, the injuries are accumulating. It was a weird, bizarre press conference. Let's finish up the injuries. Sirianni had a bizarre press conference yesterday. Whew, so much to get to, so little time to do it. My favorite time of the day, by the way. We're here each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. It's a can't stop, won't stop situation. We get it in. We cover a lot here on the Football Playbook. So, all right, defensive injuries. Man, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, they did not open up his practice window yesterday or this week, and it does not look like he's going to play either. Doesn't look like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's going to be back. This is significant because, unfortunately, Avonte Maddox is definitely out, and he's going to be out for the rest of the regular season. This is a short-term and long-term problem, in my opinion. And I'll tell you why. So with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson not expected to play, Reed Blankenship will hold it down at safety. Him and Epps, they'll be okay. By the way, outside of fourth quarter garbage time against the Titans, Marcus Epps is an Iron Man. He's played every single defensive snap. He's the only guy on defense to do that. Not so much worried about the secondary, the safety spot, as much as I am the slot. Because this nickelback is a problem. And Josiah Scott is just not good enough to get the job done. Hey, it's a bottom line business. I just call it like I see it. If you trot into the playoffs with Josiah Scott as your starter nickel, going to be big problems in Little China, right? So here's what we know. By the end of that game against Dallas, it was Kayvon Wallace time, not Josiah Scott. And I'm interested to see who starts in the slot this week. To me, this is one of the biggest mismatches on paper in the slot. And we had our good friend Kyle T. Mosley from SI.com yesterday. We went behind enemy lines. Kyle T. brought the heat. Go back and watch the replay. Tone DeShields, the second super producer behind the scenes, does a great job of isolating all of our guest interviews. Can catch them on the network. We talked about Rashid Shaheed, man. This kid's undrafted, and he's a problem in the slot because he's just as fast as Quez. This guy is super fast, and he's earned his way a regular role now in the Saints offense. In fact, he had a lot of splash plays on the deep ball in the slot earlier in the year. They've now made him a starter. And the last 4 weeks, I don't have it here in front of me. Go look at the numbers. Rashid Shaheed has been as dangerous of a slot weapon over the last 4 weeks, the past month or so, as any slot receiver in the NFL. This kid's good, man. And don't forget Chris Olave, who's got a hamstring now. He popped up on the injury report. Rashid Shaheed is going to be a name that you know after Sunday. You might not know too much about him right now. You will know him after Sunday. This, to me, again, short term this week against the Saints, and then long term going into the playoffs, they got to figure it out. You've got to assume Avonte Maddox is going to be out for the playoffs. Who's that slot guy? It's not Josiah Scott. Is it Kayvon Wallace? Is it Andre Chicheri? Is it somebody? Is it Cravon LeBlanc? I don't know. Only Nick Sirianni knows. It's going to be a big question over the next 50 hours or so. Anthony Harris, Tyler in the chat. Maybe he gets activated this week. Maybe we find out. Tell you what, playoff football is a different bird, right? Like, you want to have veterans. You want to have battle-tested guys in there. Not the Josiah Scotts of the world. No offense, Josiah. It's just been too much of a roller coaster ride. Big injury. So Maddox out. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson doesn't look like he's going to play. And, Jordan Davis now is in the concussion protocol. Milton Williams was banged up against the Cowboys. I think he did return to that game. He has not popped up on the injury report this week, as far as I know. So if Jordan Davis can't go, at least you still have Milton Williams. Linville Joseph, I think, played the most snaps of his Eagles career since he's been here. Sue, I think, is coming on strong and shaping into form. But, Fletcher Cox, this is a week we need him. He's disappeared the last 2 weeks. Javon Hargrave, we need a big game from him. And, I think what does Brandon Graham need a sack to make it 4 players on this defense to have double-digit sacks? That's never been done in NFL history. Oh, by the way, 6 more sacks again. It's unbelievable when you think about it. This team has had 6 sacks, 4 straight games. One more time, they will tie the 76 Steelers of 6 sacks in 5 straight games. The only other team to do that, the 76 Niners. I'm sorry. The San Francisco 49ers, 76. Historical. Formerly known as JoJo MC Part 2. Okay. Media always blowing shit out of proportion. I'm not blowing it up. Dude, this is real talk. Buckle up. If you don't see it, you'll find out come Sunday. Bro, you got injuries all over this roster. Suddenly, Darius Slay, go check the numbers. He's been one of the worst corners in the entire league. Slay. That's not an opinion. It's a fact. He's a liability now. You see what CeeDee Lamb did to you? Darius Slay is a liability. The slot is a liability. The whole secondary communication has been wonky and funky. Have you seen it? Maybe you're not paying attention. TJ Edwards, liability in pass coverage now. Sometimes things happen in bunches and clusters. Yeah. This is as concerned as I've been all season. Because this is a defense, the Saints, that has not allowed 20 points since week 9. It's a good defense. They got a good pass rush. They got a good secondary. They got Demario Davis in the middle. The Saints are not to be slept on. And I'll tell you what, the whole vibe of the season is going to change if they lose this game to the Saints. And that Giants game means a lot. All of a sudden, the number 1 seed will be on the line. The NFC East will be on the line. The whole dynamic changes if they lose this game. That's why there's more pressure than any week before. Kathy Sanders, you've been listening to the Mac and Mac show, haven't you? Birds 365. I've been hopping and bopping on the shows. I did get some of the comment. Did Jody Mack drop an F-bomb, by the way? I thought I heard Jody Mack drop an F-bomb. But yeah, I mean, Gannon will tell you it's quarterback pressures. Jody Mack will tell you it's all about the sacks. Ro G, welcome to the show. Thank you for chiming in. Hey, we're preaching and teaching on the football playbook. I don't talk fugazi. I don't talk nonsense. I'm not here for clicks. I'm here to talk football, real talk. Nobody does it better, baby. Hey, Justin, you're right. Smash that like button. 121 people watching right now and only 12 likes. Yo, buckle up. Smash that like. Get it in. Yeah, Adam Salvati. A lot of newbies to the show. We're here weekdays, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. Bring your big boy pants. It's starting to have a little 2017 vibes to it, ain't it? Right? Jason Peters was all banged up. The running back situation was a little shaky. You got your backup quarterback in the saddle. very eerily similar to 2017. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? We'll find out. Hey, we're just getting started here on the Football Playbook. Dane Vandernack coming up in about 5 minutes. We'll take a quick break from the Eagles talk, get into some of these bowl games, NFL draft. Real quickly here for the Saints, Alvin Kamara with a quad injury did not practice yesterday. He is expected to play, however. Marcus May, the former New York Jets safety, he has a shoulder injury. So we'll see his status. Andres Pete is going to be out. They do have a backup tackle, the Saints do. And Ryan Ramczyk, the other starting tackle, had an illness. So Ramczyk is expected to play. Pete is not expected to play. So they'll have a backup tackle and another one that's not 100% dealing with an illness. Marshawn Latimer, we mentioned, may return this week. Our friend Kyle T. Mosley mentioned that yesterday. And then Chris Olave popped up with a hamstring injury. So we'll continue to monitor that. Now, I mentioned the Nick Sirianni press conference was bizarre, very weird. And I'll get into that right after the commercial break before Dane Vandernack, executive director of the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, hops on. Hey, got to pay some bills. Check out the gallery down at Ocean Casino Resorts, your home for the Pond Lee Hockey pre- and post-game. Yo, smash that like button. Get it right. Get it tight. When we come back, we're going to keep chopping it up. Don't go anywhere.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
At Pond Lee Hockey, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lee Hockey a call.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for a December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Ram starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Postgame show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Postgame, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Bird Gang, what up? The Football Playbook with your boy, RIC, the place to be, Ric Serritella, here at the Jersey Shore, broadcasting live around the football universe. Going to pop up Dane Vandernat here in just a second. But real quickly, since we've got a triple header of guests, Neil Stratton coming up at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by RJ Ochoa, blogging the boys, 11:30. So keep it locked right here on the Football Playbook. I wanted to get this in, though. Yesterday, Coach Sirianni met with the media again, and it was a bizarre press conference. And right out of the gate, I noticed Coach was a little bit more tense than usual. And the first question actually came firing like a Randy Johnson fastball from our good friend Eddie Kratz, who we're going to try to pop up tomorrow on tomorrow's show, Cafe Kratz. I did confirm Coach John D. Filippo will join us on the Football Friday affair tomorrow as well. But Eddie Kratz kind of threw him off, and Sirianni was a little bit tense and nervous. And then the next question came in about Jalen Hurts, and he went on a really weird rant about Jalen Hurts. And Mike Selesky, who, isn't my cup of tea. He does a decent job, I guess, for his audience. He's one of these guys. He's a lot smarter than I am, and sometimes too much intelligence in the great game of football is overkill. But I'm glad he got this question in, because he's like, I kind of felt the same way as Mike. Like, Sirianni's been up here sounding like a fanboy all season long, and he again said this stupid, idiotic statement. Jalen Hurts just heals faster than everybody else. This is something he said now. I can't count how many times over the last 2 weeks. He said, Jalen Hurts is just built different. He heals faster than everybody. He's just a different human being. Like, what are you talking about? And so Mike Selesky said, yo, Coach, what is this talk with Jalen just heals faster than everybody? Is he some kind of superhero that we don't know about? Maybe Mike Selesky's been watching the show. And Sirianni went into this really weird rant. He said, listen, he said, if you were to shoot baskets with Jalen Hurts, he would beat you. If you were to race Jalen Hurts, he would beat you. If you were to throw a football around with Jalen Hurts, he would throw the ball further than you. And he kept going. He said, Jalen Hurts is younger than you. Jalen Hurts eats better than you. He said, Jalen Hurts, hence, therefore, heals faster than you. Coach, bro, I burned the midnight oil too. Get some rest. Go take a power nap or something. It was weird. Anyway, wanted to get that in. Sirianni's a fanboy of Jalen Hurts. I'm a fanboy of Dane Vandernat, executive director of the NFL PA Collegiate Bowl, who joins us here each and every Wednesday on the NFL, on the Football Playbook show. Good morning, Dane. How are you this morning?
Hey, Rick, I don't know how to respond to that one, man, but I will just say I am a big fanboy of yours as well as the show, man. I always enjoy listening.
Yeah, I tell you, Sirianni's a funny one, man. Jalen Hurts just heals faster than all of us. I don't know. I will say I hate to paint this picture like the sky is falling here in Philadelphia, but sometimes, as you know, your 10 years as director of pro personnel with the then Oakland Raiders, things tend to happen in bunches, and the Eagles were kind of in cruise control. They were very fortunate with the injury bug all season long. Going into the Dallas game, they had just missed 13 total starts from all of their starters all season long. To put that in perspective, on average, since week one, teams are on average missed 36 starts from their week one lineups. Now you've got your starting quarterback, Jalen Hurts, is out. Your starting tackle, Lane Johnson, is out. Your starting running back, Miles Sanders, is missed practice yesterday suddenly due to a knee injury. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, a Pro Bowl safety, is out. Avonte Maddox, your starting slot, is out. Suddenly, things have changed in the last 7 to 10 days. Can you recall a time with the Raiders where things just avalanched, and how do you kind of keep the calmness inside the building.
Which season you want me to reference during my time with the Oilers that, things seem to avalanche? No, you're absolutely right, Rick. This happens to every team every single year, right? Typically, you sit there and say that the teams that are going to go the furthest in the playoffs are the ones that are the healthiest, the ones that can run the football, and the ones that play good scoring defense, right? So really, Philadelphia is still firing on pretty much all those cylinders. Yes, we have 2 weeks left of the regular season, which is just a formality, right? However, like we talked about before, you don't want to be taking negative momentum into the postseason, right? You want to be firing on all cylinders. You want to take these games serious. We want to go out there with the players that we have on the roster and go win these football games and have that winning habit, have that winning mentality as we gear up for the postseason. So, to me, I understand that, hey, look, we just want to be healthy when we get to the postseason, but I don't think you want to go in there on a 2-3 game losing streak and then be expecting to play at your best. For me, if I'm Philadelphia, hey, you know what, get Jalen his due rest, right? He's put a lot of miles on his body. And that's just the style of quarterback he plays. It's something we talk about often, Rick, that, hey, look, when you have a mobile quarterback who's arguably the leading rusher, right, if not the leading rusher, I mean, this guy's accounting for more all-purpose yards than anyone else on the team. I really worry about the wear and tear. So it doesn't surprise me to have players of his style start to get injured this time of year. But we need him to be healthy because we know what a difference maker he is when he's on the field and what he can do, how he keeps defenses honest, and he's going to, frustrate the hell out of those defensive coordinators, especially like to play man coverage in the postseason.
Yeah, the whole dynamic of this offense changes without Hurts in there, and believe it or not, this Eagles team needs 3 rushing touchdowns to have the most rushing touchdowns in a single season in the modern day era, in the Super Bowl era. You got to go back to the 76 Steelers. Now, Hurts and Sanders, they're the only teammates in the league this year with 10 touchdowns in the same backfield. That whole equation can be removed, but I gotta imagine, even like when Jalen Hurts does come back, Dane, the Eagles fans should not just anticipate and expect this offense to look the same. We saw it with Kyler Murray a couple years ago when he came back from a hamstring injury. He was relegated to being much more of a pocket passer. Do you think that based on the injury, based on, like you said, the accumulation of touches, will the Eagles need to adapt and adjust and kind of minimize Hurts and his dual threat capabilities? Or is that just the style of play? You run it till the wheels fall off. There's this small window of winning the Super Bowl this year. He's going to be due a big payday. Do you just kind of stick to the game plan? What do you think?
Absolutely. The latter there, Rick. I think that, hey, look, what makes him dangerous is his dual threat ability. And, because from a defensive perspective, you have to play it differently. If we know that he's just going to stand in the pocket, we can account for that defensively. If we know that he's just going to scramble around, we can account for that defensively. But if you have the capability of doing both, there isn't a defense, there is not, for clarity, a defense that can handle that. And that's why it's so difficult, right? Unless you're only rushing 3 and you're going to have a full-time quarterback spy, who are you going to have that's going to be athletic enough to stay with Jalen Hurts, for the entire width of the football field, right? So not only do you have to think of it from a vertical standpoint, but also a horizontal one in how Philadelphia and Jalen Hurts' legs can affect what the defense is doing. So to me, you know what, I would absolutely go with it. I see that same small window you're referencing, right? To win the Super Bowl is now, because you've geared up, you've paid a lot of high-priced veterans. We talked weeks ago, Rick, about all the dead money the Eagles are paying this year. So you have to win on a rookie salary. That's obviously going to change next year when all of a sudden you got to pay Jalen Hurts a whole boatload, a whole Brinks truckload of money in order to be your quarterback, and how that's going to affect other position groups, right? So you're absolutely right. If I'm Philadelphia, all my chips are on the table right now because we have a great opportunity to win the Super Bowl this year. And the only way they're going to do that, Rick, is by Jalen Hurts being Jalen Hurts. You can't have a different style in all likelihood. I saw some in the chat room referencing the 2017 season. Obviously, Nick Foles, Carson Wentz, two very different quarterbacks, two very different athletes. I get it. It has been done. However, the likelihood of lightning striking twice is not high. So if I'm the Eagles, I do what I need to get Jalen Hurts back to performing at the level he does. Obviously, I don't want him taking on linebackers in the hole. Obviously, I want him to get out of bounds and slide and do all the normal things to protect himself. That's just the position. That's where we are with football. But we still need that dual threat capability.
No, I agree. It changes the whole dynamics if he is just relegated to the pocket, because Gardner Minshew, to your point, was a pocket passing quarterback this week. And by the end of that game, Cowboys did not respect the RPO, the zone read coverage. They were just gunning after Minshew and could care less about the potential threat of a QB run or designed run or improvised run. And that is just removed from the entire playbook. It's the football playbook with Dane Vandenat, Ric Serritella here, you out there. I see some newbies joining us, waking up in the chat room. If you're just joining the show, my sources have told me that Jalen Hurts will not play this Sunday. For those of you in the chat room who were kind of on the fence, that's just what my sources close to the team have told me. Jalen will not play. Expect some Minshew mania part deuce this week against the New Orleans Saints. Now, Dane, I have you here. We are, I think 36 days away from the 11th annual NFLPA Collegiate Bowl out in Pasadena, January 28th. Man, I'm getting excited for the Cali weather. Of course, NFL Network will televise that 6 p.m. Eastern on January 28th for all you Draft Nick fans. I want to get into some of the bowl games. By the way, there were some good ones last night, in case you guys missed it. A triple overtime affair with Arkansas and Kansas, 55-53. If you had the over, guys, you looked pretty good there. But Arkansas held on. Kansas stormed back. Oregon, 28-27 over North Carolina, and another close one. We've got bowl games, Dane. This is a great time of year, man.
It's a wonderful time of year, man.
Woo, all day today. There's another 5 on Friday tomorrow. We've got the college football playoffs on Saturday that we'll get into. And it's just, I love this time of year, man. And I do want to ask you, though, today, the Pinstripe Bowl, right up the road in Yankee Stadium. I always like, the allure of the bowl games. I know Fenway Park had a bowl game going. The Pinstripe Bowl, believe it or not, has been around for about 10 years now or so. But Syracuse versus Minnesota, 2 p.m. today. The third time the Syracuse Orangemen, led by Dino Babers, there have been in the Pinstripe Bowl. PJ Fleck, who has a very good bowl record of his first time playing in the Pinstripe Bowl. And I got a feeling that this Minnesota running back with Miles Sanders set to hit free agency, he could be a potential Eagles target. But who should Eagles fans and who should draft fans be watching today at 2 p.m. when Syracuse takes on Minnesota?
Well, I mean, just starting with that Minnesota offense, and obviously the running back Mohamed Ibrahim is one of the most talented players at that position this year coming out as a prospect. And for those that have followed him closely, last year he tore his Achilles relatively early in the season. He's been extremely productive. He's a little compact, north-south rusher, kind of an old Arian Foster type style, though he's not quite as big. He's shorter than Arian Foster was, but similar mold or play style, I would say. But with Mo Ibrahim, you have a very talented rushing game that's going to be coming, and it's going to be a fun matchup because we've got linebacker Mikal Jones from Syracuse coming out to the NFLPA Bowl, Rick, and he's going to be the guy that's going to be tasked with getting Mo Ibrahim down on the ground, for all the rushing plays. And believe me, if you watched any Minnesota games, you know that they're not afraid to give Mo the ball 30, 40 times a game, just as we're talking about with Jalen Hurts and all the wear and tear he's getting. Man, they sure like to ride Ibrahim as well, and I expect that trend to continue today. But they're not the only prospects. You got Tanner Morgan, the quarterback. Seems like he's been there a decade, right? He'll be coming out this year. He should be a guy that a team may take a flyer on late in the game, or as far as the draft is concerned. But on their defensive side, Thomas Rush, the outside linebacker, defensive end prospect, he's coming out to the NFLPA Bowl as well. It'll be fun to watch him go up against Matt Bergeron from the Qs, right? Big offensive lineman for the Orangemen. It should be a fun matchup to see those two guys duke it out in this game. But then, the safeties that Minnesota has, one of them also coming to the PA Bowl, and Jordan Howden, very talented, free safety, rangy for them. And then Tyler Nubin, who somehow they convinced him, Rick, to go back to school and not go to the Senior Bowl. But he looks like Cam Chancellor out there. He is a big physical. I think he's the best tackling safety in college football. Really fun duo to be watching in that secondary of Minnesota there, Rick.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. It all starts off at about 3 hours or so. And Muhammad Abraham, in case you guys didn't know, he's got at least 2 torn ACLs. And we've come a long way since the days of Stephen Davis. But he wanted to come back this year to Minnesota to just prove that he is durable, that he has come back from the injury. And I think he needs like maybe 75 yards or so to become the Gophers' all-time leading rusher. So he's had an illustrious career there up in Minnesota. He's been on our radar for, with the COVID year, it seems like forever. Michael Jones from Syracuse. It's funny. I was watching him just this morning, and he was reminding me of an Eagles player that, I liked, that we also had at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, which is Sean Bradley, the linebacker. And if you watch Jones, he's very similar to Bradley in terms of being a downhill, plugging the holes and stuffing the gaps. And I think he could make his money on special teams at the next level. Doesn't have prototypical size. I think he comes in a shade under 6 feet tall, much like a Sean Bradley. So Bergeson from Syracuse, the tackle there, is somebody to keep an eye on. He does have a Senior Bowl. He will probably be a top 100 selection. I did hear Tanner Morgan, is questionable for the game. So we'll see what happens or what transpires there. Okay. Also later on today, the Cheez-Its Bowl, Oklahoma versus Florida State. You got the Alamo Bowl tonight, Texas versus Washington, Quinn Ewers and my guy, Michael Penix from Washington, 2 guys who I think could be future potential first-round quarterbacks. So we got some good ones today. Tomorrow, 5 more bowl games. It's unbelievable. It just
best time of year, Rick.
It's great. Tone, by the way, I might have to be off tomorrow. Get ready for there's so many to get into. We'll get into the college football playoffs. Let's fast forward to Saturday. You have, of course, the college football playoffs, but you also have the Music City Bowl, Iowa versus Kentucky, and then the Sugar Bowl, Alabama versus Kansas State. Talk to me about this one, Dane.
Yeah, no, obviously everyone's been watching Bama for all these years, and we know what a dominating program they have. Guys like Bryce Young and, Henry Toto and Will Anderson, right? We know the big names from Bama. We know that they're going to be a tough squad for K-State to take on. But, K-State, just like we saw in that TCU Big 12 championship game, they're a tough squad themselves, and they've got some firepower. Adrian Martinez presents a dual threat at the quarterback position. He's an athlete. He's not afraid to lower his shoulder. He has, really a lot of those same things we were talking about a minute ago with Jalen Hurts. Adrian Martinez can affect guys from as a rusher, right? Arguably more so than as a passer, but in the passing game, he can throw it down the field to Malik Knowles. We know that he can turn around and hand the ball, Rick, to Deuce Vaughn behind him. So you've got a nice rushing passing attack, right? They got Cade Warner, Kurt Warner's son, also one of the receivers. And then on defense, they got a pass rusher, Felix, I'm going to butcher the name, Rick, Nduki Uzuma, right? Number 91 there, plays right defensive end. He's going to be going up against Tyler Steen, the left tackle for Alabama. Should be a fun matchup all game long to be watching. I think Felix is a heck of a football player. Really should be interesting to see in particular that battle. But we know also that Alabama's bringing that defensive firepower, got some talented DBs like Jordan Battle, like, DeMarco Helams, et cetera. So, it should be a strength on strength, Rick, from my point of view. I can't wait to see this game.
Yeah, there's going to be prospects littered all over the field. And what I appreciate about the Alabama players is we've seen it this bowl season. I mean, the bowl games have basically become almost a spring ball kind of vibe to it. But Bryce Young and some of the Alabama prospects, they said, no, buckle up. We're playing. I'm excited about that. I think that's a breath of fresh air. And, hey, everybody remembers that Jalen Smith injury a few years back. Notre Dame linebacker gets hurt in the bowl game, cost himself millions of dollars. But maybe that risk isn't so great this year because you got NIL money. Bryce Young made $3.2 million in NIL money. So he's going to give it a go. Bama's going to give it a go. And by the way, I don't know if you've seen differently, Dan. I have not seen or heard an announcement in terms of Bryce Young coming out for the NFL draft.
Yeah, nor have I. Now, they're usually pretty, tight-lipped, as is Georgia, as is Michigan, as is Ohio State, right? The 4 teams that are in the playoffs this year, all those teams are pretty conservative. And, the interesting thing too, Rick, is you and I are dealing with this year with NIL is these teams seem to be pretty persuasive and getting these guys to come back for another year. You look at Bo Nix up at Oregon, for instance, right? A guy that's turning down an opportunity to go to the Senior Bowl and to go be, potentially a day 2 type pick to go back to college for another year. With some of these, I think it's pretty short-sighted, and I'm in disagreement with that decision to return. But, we're seeing the power of NIL. We're seeing the power and persuasiveness of these colleges to re-recruit their guys to stay for a 5th or even a 6th year in some instances. So very interesting dynamic that is really going to have some ripples next year in the NFL as well.
Yeah, I think that's a poor decision by Bo Nix. There's nothing he's going to do to improve his draft stock after the year he just had. I mean,
no,
he had a great,
the money that he would get between signing bonus and paragraph 5 in the NFL dwarfs the $5 million he's allegedly received to return back to Oregon. And, the other thing too, these guys aren't thinking of is that one, your body can only take so many hits. Your body is only going to have so many prime football playing years. Why waste it in college where you're getting no pension and no long-term benefits rather than the National Football League that has a rather large and impressive retirement and post-playing career pension program? And then too, Rick, you get a lot of these 24, 25-year-old rookies. Well, if you're 25 and you sign a 4-year contract, that means you're 29 when contract number 2 comes up. That means you're 33 when contract number 3 comes up. So we're starting to get on the wrong side of the 30 slide here when it comes to re-signing and really being able to earn, because contract 2 and oftentimes contract 3, especially if you're, a star player, those are the big paydays. And now if we're getting a little longer in the tooth, teams are going to be more reluctant to issue such large paydays, especially that have those extra years at the end of them. So, something that not a lot of 21, 22-year-olds are thinking about. And I know it's tough when someone opens a nice little briefcase, Rick, filled with $100 bills and says, why don't you return on an NIL deal? But it is short-sighted, and I don't know that all these guys are always getting the full perspective on, from which to judge what decision they ought to make.
No, I know it's fascinating because the NCAA now, they opened up this can of worms that they didn't quite anticipate, and now they're looking into how to resolve it. But it's a problem when you're talking about Bo Nix coming back and making $5 million. Well, hey, that's more money than Kenny Pickett made this year. So there's an issue there when it comes to NIL and what it means. And I think the COVID year, having this extra year of eligibility, we've seen this free agent frenzy with the DJ Ugaleles and the Grayson McCalls of the world. How about that? He's in the transfer portal and he's playing for Coastal Carolina. Hey, we could spend a whole episode on that. Adams exploits, don't worry. Tackles, defensive backs, we got you covered. It's the college football playoffs this Saturday, New Year's Eve. For those of you who,
Hey, Ricky, real quick, man, and not to go against you, but Kenny Pickett's total signing bonus was 7.4.
Oh, okay.
So it's prorated to just 1 point something this year, but he did get 7.4. But at any rate, I know we're splitting hairs here.
No, I mean, listen, that's the educational tutorial Thursday why we have Dane Vanden on here. So listen, let's get into the college football playoff matchups. First off, number 2 Michigan versus number 3 TCU. We mentioned Alabama. A lot of people, myself being one of them, thought Alabama would have been a better college football playoff opponent than TCU. But hey, it's neither here nor there. I do know this. Max Stogan is an exciting player to watch, and he's a gamer. So I think anytime you've got a situation like that, TCU is going to give them a fight. I watched the running back DeMarcado, who's coming out to the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. This kid is a little ball of fire. I like him. He's got some good size to him. I like the build. He's a triple threat. I think he can catch the ball as well as run the ball. Not too bad in pass protection either. But break down this TCU, Michigan. Adams exploits wanted tackles. Ryan Hayes is a good one there for Michigan, isn't he, Dane?
No question. And he's going to have his hands full, though, with Dylan Horton across from him, the defensive end from TCU. You know, a former safety at New Mexico, Rick, that transferred to TCU, has been a nice pass rusher for them the last 2 seasons. That'll be one of those great individual matchups for us to watch. That's the type of matchup, Rick, as we know, that NFL scouts want to watch, right? They want to see an apple versus an apple. They want to see iron versus iron sharpening one another, right? That's going to be the best indicator of how this player is going to project to the next level, is how he performs in these types of games against this quality of competition. But, you know, I mean, Max Duggan, I think you can make a case for why he ought to have won the Heisman, but he's got a lot of firepower around him too. One of the most talented receivers in Quentin Johnston, right? Tay Barber and Darius Davis, 2 others kind of slot, smaller receivers that really bring that speed element to complement Quentin Johnston on the outside. Running backs, you mentioned our man Amari DeMarcado, but Kendre Miller as well has been very productive for TCU this year. So TCU's got some offensive, tight end Jared Wiley, former Texas transfer, more receiving skill set, very akin to like a Mark Andrews over in Baltimore. Maybe not as quite as elite as Mark, but, still has some similarities from a play style standpoint. So, TCU is going to be bringing that firepower. We know Michigan's got some good players. They got linebacker Michael Barrett, corners Mike Sainristil and DJ Turner. So, Michigan's no slouch in that department either. Should have some great matchups along those lines, but we know it's all going to come down to Michigan trying to pound the rock. Right? They're going to try and out physical TCU. TCU is not known as, being the most stout or the most physical of defenses. So this is where it's going to get interesting, is can they slow down Michigan's offense? Can they slow down J.J. McCarthy, Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum if he's healthy, Ronnie Bell, Cornelius Johnson on the outside, Luke Schoonmaker at tight end there. So, Michigan's got some talent, Rick, and it's going to be a fun matchup itself.
Yeah, that's Schoonmaker. I like him. He's a great blocker as a tight end, and it's going to be a close matchup, but I think Michigan takes it. How do you see that one?
I think Michigan takes it as well, but I do think it's going to be a closer game, and I'm hopeful that TCU is going to, be able to put up some points and keep this thing, from getting out of hand.
All right, the winner is going to face Georgia or Ohio State. Number 1, Georgia versus number 4, Ohio State. You've got CJ Stroud on the big stage. Some people anticipating him to be the first quarterback off the board. I should mention Quentin Johnston of TCU might be the first wide receiver off the board, and he has some everessence of Megatron, a little Calvin Johnson to his game. I'm not comparing him to him, but when you talk about the
he's going to be a Hall of Famer, Rick. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're going to put the yellow jacket on Quentin Johnson right now, but keep an eye on that young man. And then Ohio State and Georgia, you got CJ Stroud going up against one of the best defenses we've seen in quite some time. This should be a fun affair, but I think in terms of any college football game being played on this calendar year, I think this probably has the most NFL prospects of any game that's going to be played this season.
Yeah, no question. And you know what? I'm really hopeful Ohio State is going to make this a game and really be coming off that Michigan loss and, you know, really wanting to get that bad taste out of their mouth. They know that they're going up against a Georgia team who's coming off a national championship and a dominating SEC championship performance, right? You know, so this is certainly not going to be an easy task for Ohio State, but you know, they still have some weapons. And if they can find that physicality, right? Because that's what Michigan did to them, just like we're talking about with TCU. Michigan punched Ohio State in the mouth and never let off. Georgia's going to try and do the exact same thing. But I don't know that Georgia's run game, Rick, is as physical and as talented as Michigan's is. Right. We know that Georgia's got Stetson Bennett, who's going to protect the football. He's an extremely smart quarterback. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't, you know, carry the ball loosely. But, you know, Georgia doesn't really have a lot of firepower outside. I mean, their leading receivers, the tight end, Brock Bowers, who, let's face it, would lead a lot of teams, right? Because he's such a talented prospect. He and Darnell Washington, that's one of the most outstanding 1-2 tight end, you know, combinations that a team can field. But, you know, it'll be interesting because I think Ohio State defensively can keep this game close, right? They got some talented guys coming off the edge, and Zach Harrison and Jean-Baptiste. And, you know, it's not as though Georgia is going to be able to just run away with this thing, I don't think.
Yeah, and, you know, I was trying to remember the tackle. You know, the Ohio State has two tackles that should be on the Eagles' radar. One is DeJuan Jones, right? DeJuan Jones, and the other one
I'm blanking on the name as well, but
he's going to be like a top 10 pick. So they got two potential first-round picks. The Eagles hold 2 first-round picks. Keep an eye on the Ohio State tackles for certain. All right, hey, you know, one last question for you, Dane, coming in from the chat room here. I saw somebody ask, who is the Eagles' backup quarterback going to be behind Gardner Minshew? Well, it was last week, and it will be once again this week. Former New Orleans Saints quarterback, former Notre Dame quarterback, Ian Book, more wins than any Fighting Irish quarterback all time. When you think about Joe Montana, Jimmy Clausen, some of the greats over there at Notre Dame. Do you have a little scouting report on Ian Book? He was a Senior Bowl invite, so he didn't come out to the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, but great leader, very smart, cerebral guy. Didn't work out in New Orleans, but one play away from being your Eagles quarterback. Dane, what do you make of Ian Book?
Well, you know, I think that really the thing that Ian brings is that mobility, right? He's of a similar mold that, hey, he's a guy that can get out the pocket. He can scramble around. He can extend plays with his feet, and he can also scramble and pick up some positive yards. You know, when you're talking about the RPO game, those are things that Ian Book's fully capable of executing. And it's not like Nick Foles goes in the game and they're trying to run an RPO, right? And no one pays any attention to the quarterback because they're not afraid of a guy running greater than 5.040 beating them to the edge, right? Ian Book, on the other hand, does bring that athleticism. So, you know, hasn't always been the best passer. You know, he's kind of been a quick 1-2 read, drop eyes and run type quarterback. But you know what? When you have a backup quarterback go in the game, that usually means your offensive line's not playing very well because your starter just got hurt, right? So you need a guy with some mobility. You need a guy that can avoid the rush a little bit and try and keep something alive. You know, not oftentimes does Carson Wentz go down and you have a Nick Foles come in and be Super Bowl MVP. You know, those instances are few and far between. So I'm certainly not saying that I expect Ian Book to be able to play to that caliber, but you know what? I do think that, you know, he can at least get you out of a game, so to speak. He can at least use his legs, and you still have the full playbook that you can work with there.
You hope they don't have to resort to Ian Book, but, you know, we shall see. We'll come back next week, see who is going to be playing in that college football playoff championship. We'll also see if the Eagles clinch it all up, or will they be playing for their lives against the New York Football Giants in the final week of the season. A lot of drama building up as we get to the end of the calendar year and closer to our time of the year, Dane, which is draft season. Of course, the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, January 28th, 6 p.m. NFL Network. We're about a month away from reporting out there in Pasadena, the historic Rose Bowl, Dane. Can't wait to catch up with you, and we'll do it again next week, my friend.
Always look forward to it, Rick. Appreciate you having me on, bud.
Absolutely.
Happy New Year to all of our listeners.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, Dane, and he'll be back at it again next week. Of course, the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, you can find more information over at collegiate.nflpa.com. We got the alumni spotlight up there. We've got Dane's scouting trails, and we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, our good friend Neil Stratton from InsideTheLeague.com down in New Orleans is going to check in here on the Football Playbook. Buckle up.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for a December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Rams starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Postgame show with Seth Joyner,
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn,
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney,
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
and Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Postgame, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
At it again. It's the Football Playbook with your boy, RIC, in a place to be. Ric Serritella, telling it like it is when it comes to your 13-2 Philadelphia Eagles here on this Thursday affair, Tutorial Thursday, December 29th. Only a couple days left of this 2022 calendar year. It's so exciting. Our 82nd episode here on the Football Playbook, all brought to you by the Ocean Casino Resorts in Atlantic City. Make sure you go down to the gallery, check out the Pond Lehocky Eagles pre- and post-game. Don't forget to smash that like button. Thank you so much, Adams Exploits in the chat room, all the chat room people in the front and the back where you're at. James, Roji, Dank, I see you all out there. And, hey, I'm not here to stir it up. I'm not here to create panic or concern. I'm just keeping it real. The New Orleans Saints are not a team to be slept on. And this is a team mathematically alive for the playoffs. They can still win the division. They went off and beat a cold weather opponent. What was it? 6 degrees on kickoff. They went in there. They took care of business. The defense hasn't allowed 20 points since week number 9. So I thought it'd be a great time to catch up with our good friend Neil Stratton, who's down there in the Bay Owl. Who Dat Nation, of course, InsideTheLeague.com CEO, joining us right here on the Football Playbook. Good morning, Neil. How are you today?
Rick, what's up, buddy? It's been a long time no see. It's good to be back. Appreciate you having me. It's going to be an interesting game this weekend. I think the Saints have a lot of reasons to remember the last 2 butt whoopings that the Eagles have put on them and how that's taken place. And we'll have to see if they can kind of get some redemption, I guess, this weekend.
Yeah, we shall see. Some of the faces have changed. Most notably, I think Dennis Allen steering the ship. Sean Payton no longer there. And I know Ric Serritella yesterday in his press conference said Dennis Allen coach defense is always going to be ready, always going to be prepared. And they have been pretty stout, Neil. It's pretty surprising when I went and looked it up. They don't allow many touchdowns. They have not allowed 20 points since week number 9. You got to go back over 2 months ago. I'll tell you, maybe the season hasn't panned out for the Saints exactly according to plan, but still a very good defense to be reckoned with.
Well, I think their secondary has really come together in the last, 4 to 5 weeks, maybe a little longer than that. The difficulty is that they're still really struggling to stop the run. And if you are aggressive between the tackles and can attack the edges, you're going to have some success against the Saints defense. A couple weeks ago, they were able to beat the Falcons, but the Falcons still rushed, I think, for 200 yards. And I believe in their last drive when they were driving to win the game, I don't think they passed until they finally did. And then the Saints came up with a turnover, and one thing led to another, they were able to win. I think for those of us that saw the Browns game, there are a lot of plays that Deshaun Watson left out on the field because he's still rusty. He's still kind of getting his feet underneath him, trying to learn Kevin Stefanski's offense and those kinds of things. So I think the Eagles have good prospects of winning, despite the fact that Gardner Minshew's starting, and that's no dig on Gardner Minshew. I believe he's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. But obviously he's not Jalen Hurts. And with Hurts, the Eagles were able to just run, basically with impunity on the Saints the last 2 times they've met. And I think if Sirianni sticks to that game plan, the Eagles are going to have success again.
Yeah, well, you know what, though? Fortunately for the Saints, Miles Sanders popped up on the injury report yesterday. He did not practice. Yeah. Jalen Hurts is not expected to play. Mm-hmm. They're the only pair of teammates in the NFL, by the way, with 10 rushing touchdowns apiece. Mm-hmm. So, and to your point, like they did go up to Cleveland, who has Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and they did their damn thing. The Saints defense did, but I agree. I think the secondary, like Sirianni mentioned, Paulson Adebo. They've got Bradley Roby there. They've got Alontae Taylor playing good football, and I hear Marshawn Lattimore might be activated this week. So I think the secondary is very impressive, despite losing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to the Eagles earlier in the season, which was looking like a lopsided trade. Now, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's injured, Neil. He was eligible to be active for this Saints game. It doesn't look like it's going to pan out that way. Now, someone who has, a familiar with Chauncey being with the Saints, I know he played a lot of slot and nickel for the Saints, not so much for the Eagles. Now, the Eagles have a bunch of injuries in their secondary, and if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson does come back, it looks like they may need him in that slot and nickelback role. And I know, the casual fan might say, oh, well, he's only played 13% of the snaps there this year in the slot. But going back to his Florida days, he did it there. Going back to his Saints days, he did it there. What are your thoughts and impressions of a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, his versatility, his ability to play that slot?
Well, first of all, I think the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson trade may have been the turning point for these Saints. I think they thought the secondary was going to be something that was going to be a real point of emphasis for their defense. losing Malcolm Jenkins going into the season to retirement, losing Marcus Williams to the Ravens in free agency. Those are two big blows. Now they obviously they went out, they brought in the Honey Badger, and they hoped that he would plug some holes. Marcus May is a great run stopper, but I think a lot of members of the Who Dat Nation would agree that Chauncey was the kind of the glue that held that secondary together, not just with his play, which is formidable, but his attitude. I mean, who can forget him getting in the face of Tom Brady after they beat the Bucs? And he's brash, and sometimes that rubs people the wrong way, but that also brings that fire that a secondary needs, I think, that a defense needs. So regardless of where he plays, and I haven't been able to see a lot of Eagle snaps this year, but I saw a lot of Saints snaps back in the day when he was with them, and I know that he can handle that slot position very well. He's a very physical player. He moves well. He's got that quickness that you need when you're kind of working between the hashes and that kind of thing. But you can also bring him off the edge. I mean, he's got so many virtues when it comes to playing in the secondary. He's as comfortable in the box as he is, a little deeper. And so he's a valuable tool to have. And I'm sure he's had this game circled on his calendar. If he's at all healthy, he's going to be out there. And the Saints offense, the wide receiver core has been banged up. I mean, I think it looks like Chris Olave is going to play. I think he got a practice in yesterday. But if he doesn't, then you're looking at a real second tier wide receiver room when it comes to, just what the NFL is usually rolling out there. I mean, I think that was one of the major things the Saints try to do in the offseason was improve their wide receiver room. Then Michael Thomas goes out again for the season, and Jarvis Landry's had trouble staying on the field, and a number of other issues have come up. And so here we are. The Saints had to throw to a guy that was on their practice squad immediately before the game twice in crucial situations against the Browns last week. Didn't convert either one of them, and that's one reason why it was such a close game. So I think if Gardner Johnson plays, he's going to be a difference maker. I guess the only question is whether or not he's going to be healthy enough to get out there.
Yeah, he's got a lacerated kidney, so I think the CAT scan is going to dictate, his availability. It's not looking like a go as of today. Now, it's funny. I listened to you talk, Neil. The Eagles have been relatively healthy, and I listened to you talk about the litany of injuries the Saints have been dealing with going all the way back to the beginning of the season, right? Like you mentioned, Michael Thomas, that was a big blow. Jameis Winston didn't quite work out. And I know like Sean Payton had this great succession plan for Jameis to kind of succeed Drew Brees. Just hasn't panned out. Taysom Hill is an interesting player. I feel like, any given week he could have 20 touches, or any given week he could have 0 touches. Last week I saw he didn't touch the ball until the 21st offensive play of the game. And then he came in and did his damn thing. Neil, it's just like, I can't pinpoint. And I guess that's what the Saints want, right? Like you just don't know when or how this guy is going to be used in the game.
I don't want to be critical of the Saints coaching staff, but, Pete Carmichael is in his first year as the offensive coordinator, didn't want the job initially. And I think there have been areas where he's grown early in the season, but I haven't seen that growth continue kind of in a steady arc. And I don't think any better example of that is the fact that, Taysom Hill, we're talking about a cold weather game. This is a game made for the 1940s football. And, they came out throwing. And I recognize that they had the wind at their back early on, and maybe they kind of want to take advantage of the element of surprise, and they adjusted. And so I guess we need to give them credit for making those in-game changes that are necessary. But, I mean, sometimes I think it's possible to outthink yourself and maybe be a little too cute. When you've got someone like Taysom Hill, who – and I'm not trying to say that Taysom Hill is the kind of refined passer that Patrick Mahomes is, obviously, but he does bring a certain skill set to the game, especially in bad weather conditions that you need. And Taysom's got outstanding speed, but he's also a power back. And so, and then against the Falcons, I think he threw a 50-plus yard touchdown pass, something along those lines. So if you take advantage, I think, of the players that you have on the field and the skills they have in the conditions, I think you're much better off. I hope that the Saints will remember what Taysom did do when they gave him the ball last week, and perhaps use that against the Eagles. Notwithstanding the fact that he started, I guess it was 2 years ago when the Saints came into Lincoln Financial Field, I guess, and really got drummed, quite frankly. That was kind of the end of Taysom's run before Drew Brees came back. So it'll be interesting to see. And there's a lot of history. I think it's kind of crazy to sit here and say, oh, well, these are two teams that really, I think, have kind of been butting heads for a while. But there was a time not too long ago when the Saints were one of the better teams in the NFC, and the Eagles are still on the rise. And those roles have kind of reversed now. And, and so we'll see kind of how the game plan works out and how they decide to use their weapons and their tools, and how it is affected. I would note also, when we were talking about the Eagles offense, losing Lane Johnson is going to be a big blow too. I mean, that guy is he is a man out there and one of the better offensive linemen in the league, and he's got to impact the way they run their offense as well.
No, I think the Saints are catching the Eagles at a perfect time for them in terms of starting quarterback is out, 1,000-yard rusher possibly out, Lane Johnson maybe as important as Jalen Hurts out, and the secondary is littered with their own issues. So yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a much closer ball game than people realize or are anticipating. I really do. Let me get a quick prediction from you, Neil, on the game. I don't have the point spread in front of me. I think it might be 6 points. Who knows?
Yeah.
You giving the Saints a puncher's chance?
I still think the Eagles win. I think it's probably closer than a lot of people might think, as you alluded to. I think the Saints probably cover. I think it's probably a field goal kind of game. I think in these conditions, given that it is going to be more of a run type offense, I think you're going to see that. But at the same time, the Eagles have A.J. Brown, and what a weapon he's become. And I think all in all, they just have too much talent on the field, especially offensively, for the Saints to be able to slow them down enough to be able to win. So that would be my guess, is the Eagles in a close one.
Talking to Neil Stratton, InsideTheLeague.com. If you want to be in the know when it comes to front office, executives, scouting, the agent community, InsideTheLeague.com is where it's at. Nobody covers it better than Neil. Of course, we'll be out at the NFL Scouting Combine for I think it's the 14th annual Inside the League Scouting Combine seminar now.
It's the 15th, man.
15th? Oh, man.
Buckle up. It is. Believe it or not, we're getting close to that 20-year anniversary.
Ooh, baby. And we'll be giving out the awards, the Best NFL Draft, the GM of the Year award. Nobody does it better than Neil. And we'll get into some of the other things you have going on. I know you're getting ready for an all-star game. I know you're involved as a consultant or an advisor with the XFL. But quickly here, just wrapping up the Saints conversation, Sean Payton's a guy that's kind of been in the news lately. And there's a lot of speculation. He's now shopping himself, from what I hear, as a combo deal with Vic Fangio as his defensive coordinator. Neil, my understanding, though, is the Saints do still own his rights. Do you think they will play hardball? Do you think that they will kind of let Sean Payton go wherever he wants? Remember back in the day with Tuna, he got traded from the Patriots and the Jets. There was a lot of compensation involved there. What are you hearing when it comes to Sean Payton? How strict, or what will the compensation look like from the Saints, or is this all still to be determined?
There are a lot of moving parts here, and I think there has been a lot of kind of whispers from Sean's agency. And by the way, Sean Payton and Tom Brady share an agency. I think that's something that's really gotten kind of lost in the wash. I think we keep hearing about.
We talked about it on this program. They got that Dolphins owner in quite a bit of trouble down there earlier.
That's true, but I think that's an important factor in this. At any rate, I think it's sexy and exciting to talk about it, and I think a lot of members of the Who Dat Nation would welcome Payton back with open arms. But I don't think it happens. I think there are a number of reasons for that. I think number one, I think it's just too early to cut bait on the Dennis Allen era. I think there are certainly changes that are going to need to be made, but eating 3 years of a deal after 1 year, I think that's in the DNA of Gail Benson and the team management. I think, and quite frankly, I think Sean Payton's worth more to them with another team than he is with the Saints at this point. I think they've got a lot of rebuilding to do, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I think quarterback has got to be addressed immediately. And I know that there are people that disagree with me, but I think it's very important that they look to find someone they can kind of develop and perhaps give them hope. I think Andy Dalton has been a nice stopgap, and he's been a player that has not made too many mistakes. I'm Team Jameis at this point in the season. I know that the team has played well, and I know that everyone that hates the fact that the Saints traded their first round to the Eagles. Want to see the Saints run the table, so that's not a top 10 pick. But at the same time, I think you've got to find out what you have with Jameis, and I think he's got a skill set that not every quarterback in the league has, and I think has some value. But if they're not going to do that, I think they have to trade Peyton. They've got to get at least a first rounder and maybe more. I mean, the buzz I continue to hear is that wherever Peyton goes, especially if there's a GM vacancy, Jeff Ireland goes. If that happens to the Saints, they're in big trouble because I'm of the I know I'm kind of in the minority, but I'm of the mind that Jeff Ireland is the most important person in that organization right now from a standpoint of redeveloping the roster from a talent standpoint. The Saints were the first team to win the best draft award. We gave it for the 2017 draft, and I think it's undeniable what Ireland's been able to do, not just in the draft but after the draft. The number of players that are on their roster and that are in the league that are undrafted free agents that came out of New Orleans is unmistakable. And so they've got to have. I think if Peyton leaves and they can keep Ireland and they can get a draft haul, then that would be a real coup for them. If they lose Ireland, then it's going to be a lot tougher to kind of get back to where they were. But to answer your question, I don't think he returns. I think he is going somewhere else. Now, where that is could be any number of places. And obviously, from the Saints standpoint, you want that market to grow and grow and grow and have everyone as interested as possible. And, if Peyton wants to go somewhere and take Fangio with him, more power to him as long as they pay the price for his rights.
It's shaping up to be very, very interesting. I'll tell you, with this package deal, it's becoming bigger and bigger. Now it's Ireland, it's Peyton, it's Fangio, could be Brady.
Yeah.
Gronk tweeted out he's bored. Maybe it's a whole combo deal this offseason, man. It's ironic, too, because the Saints could probably use that whole equation.
Yeah.
All right, Neil, go ahead. You got a final thought on that?
I really could. I mean, it is exciting. The idea of Brady coming to New Orleans, there's a lot of talk about him. If Drew had retired 2 years ago, that was his original plan. If he were to come back and Peyton were to come back, I know my sons would be super excited about that. But, I don't know if that's realistic. And, we live in the real world, and Dennis Allen has a contract, and the team's fighting for him. I think that there certainly have been a lot of mistakes made, and certainly hope that improvement can be made. But, they are still going out there and they're going to war. And I think that's something to be said in Allen's favor.
No, that's a good point. There's some validity there to that. Neil Stratton, InsideTheLeague.com, does a great job here. Neil, running out of time. You got so much going on. Give us the 411 with what's going on with InsideTheLeague.com, what's going on with the Neil Stratton All-Star Game travels. Might we have you out at the NFL PA Bowl? I know you're getting ready to depart for the College Gridiron Showcase here coming up. What, this week, is it?
It's first week of January. So I'm sorry, second week of January. So it's coming up really, really soon, man. Yeah, looking forward to that. It's going to be a busy January, but that's the most fun of the year to me, is going out on the road, seeing my people, getting caught up on what's going on, seeing people like yourself, obviously Dane, who was already in here. I'm hoping to make it to NFLPA this year. Dane's going to kill me if I don't come, and I recognize that. I do not want to die. So hopefully I can make it out there. But we'll see. But it's the most fun part of the year. And for those of you who may be considering a life in football and want to work in the league, I encourage you to get out there and get out to these games, because that's where the business is. And it's a very dressed down, casual environment and a fun time to be there. But if you can't make it there, come to Indianapolis, meet Rick, who's one of the best guys in the game. I'll be there too. I'm kind of a nice guy too. More than anything else.
Now he's telling lies, guys.
Come see the awards. I'm hoping that someone will accept the best draft award, Rick. I mean, Chris Ballard won it for the 2018 draft. He's on thin ice. We're hearing about George, the new head coach in Denver, is not going to even report to George Payton. The Broncos won it last year, so I'm hoping that whoever wins it this year is still going to show up and accept the award. It's maybe it's bad juju.
Yeah, it's becoming like the Madden cover jinx.
Exactly.
The Inside the League.
I never intended that, and hopefully we can get that turned around.
Well, hey, Neil, it's always a pleasure to chop it up with you. I know we're going to be having you on more frequently here as we get closer to the 2023 NFL Draft. It's a great time of year. We didn't get it all in, but, hey, go to InsideTheLeague.com. Sign up for his Friday Wrap newsletter that comes out. It's almost Friday, so buckle up.
Tomorrow.
Always look forward to that. I can't believe it. The new year is upon us. And, if we don't talk in the next day or two, Neil, Happy New Year to you. And always a pleasure, my friend.
And same to everyone else out there, too. Have a happy and safe New Year. And we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely. Buckle up. Go to InsideTheLeague.com. Get in the know if you want to go and be a pro. That's what we do here on the Football Playbook. Of course, Neil Stratton, a great friend of the show. Hey, we're moving. We're grooving. I can't believe we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here. Tone DeShields II behind the scenes. We got RJ Ochoa coming up here after the commercial break. Blogging the boys. Going to get into that Eagles-Cowboys affair. Preview a little Thursday night football tonight. Oh, baby, buckle up. We'll be back right after this. Tone, you with me? We going to the break? Neil, you're still here?
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for a December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Rams starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Postgame show with Seth Joyner,
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn,
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney,
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
and Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Postgame, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Back at it again. It's the Football Playbook, part 82 edition here on this Thursday, December 29th, the tutorial Thursday, I should mention, on the Football Playbook here with you today. Winding down, counting you down to the sports take coming up at noon Eastern time here with you today. We just heard from our good friend Neil Stratton of InsideTheLeague.com. And I got to tell you guys, I mean, I don't know many folks, if any folks, with a deeper Rolodex than Neil. And he just dropped the gem on us, man. This whole Jeff Ireland deal, that's a real thing. Jeff Ireland did write the foreword to one of his books. So he's not just putting out smoke. And I'll tell you, man, this Sean Payton is as bold and as brash as they come. I can't quite remember now somebody grandstanding and politicking for a job and just being so open with it, like a Sean Payton, who said, hey, Vic Fangio is my defensive coordinator. Jeff Ireland's coming as my GM. Tom Brady's going to be my quarterback. Oh, by the way, Gronk might be part of the package as well. Man, this thing is starting to grow some real legs, something to keep an eye on during the offseason. So great segment there out of Neil Stratton. We also had Dane Vandernat on, executive director of the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, did a little NFL draft talk there. And we've been previewing the Saints game. And last week, we tried to pop this man up and get some Cowgirls talk in with him. Our good friend RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com. Of course, I jest. Good morning, RJ. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy to have you here. The Eagles fans, maybe not so much. So be careful. We're treading water over here with the Cowboys 40-34 win this past weekend. But always appreciate your time and welcome back.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Really fun week, obviously, for Cowboys fans. A quick one, obviously, as they play tonight on Thursday Night Football. You mentioned, kind of how brash Sean Payton is. I would just compare it to Mike McCarthy when he was looking to come out, or even Doug Peterson. There was not this level of intensity. I mean, both McCarthy and Peterson kind of waited until it felt a little bit more appropriate, right? Until, we had actually gotten through the regular season. They never put out teams that they, wanted to coach while those, teams still had head coaches. Sean is a little bit bold, and I could see that, ruffling some feathers the wrong way, just because it's kind of not cool to say, hey, I want this Chargers job that Brandon Staley's doing an okay job of right now. McCarthy, Peterson, I thought handled it the right way.
No, that's a great point, RJ, because not so much this year, but last year it felt like the Sean Payton shadow was just kind of lurking over Mike McCarthy. And yeah, he didn't hold back. He didn't come out and say, hey, that's somebody else's job. I'm not politicking for it. No, he's like waiting in the wings. And yeah, I think it's pretty open and common knowledge that, he wants back in. He's got his guys. And I got to ask, I mean, since we're talking about it, is Mike McCarthy safe? Is the Sean Payton ship officially sailed, or is that still a back burner possibility?
That's such an interesting conversation that Cowboys fans have amongst themselves. I do what I can to try to quiet those waters. A lot of people like to say, well, do they have to make the divisional round for McCarthy to be saved? Do they have to reach the title game? Like, well, how does that happen? Like, do they make it or miss it because of a missed field goal, a field goal that bounces in off the upright? You're really gonna, change a franchise for kind of a stroke of luck. Sometimes the NFL playoffs can obviously be. I don't know how you could be disappointed with Mike McCarthy if you're a Cowboys fan, unless you just have these unrealistic expectations. Since we last talked, the Cowboys obviously probably not going to win the NFC East, but they have clinched a playoff berth. They're a playoff team in back-to-back seasons for the first time since 2006 and 2007. They've won double-digit games for the first time since 1995 and 1996. I mean, he has brought them to life. He has turned them into, and nobody wants to admit this because it's McCarthy and, Rodgers was so much better, but he has turned them into the Packers, a team that is always there, always in the mix. It's a small sample size, 3 years. But when Dak Prescott's been there, he has made sure this is a very good football team. And so could Sean Payton be better? Maybe. Could, Kellen Moore be better, or Dan Quinn? Maybe. But it's really hard to not be pleased with the job that Mike McCarthy's done. To your point, in spite of having all these shadows kind of hanging around above him, he's really done something impressive, I think.
Yeah, and I give him credit just for having Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn on the staff, because, there's some people that might want those guys to be the next head coach. But I think the luster is kind of worn off since the last time we spoke. Now, that win against the Eagles certainly heals some wounds. Let's talk about that game, because I got to say, I saw maybe a turning point. Like, I'll start off with the 3rd and 30. It's been talked about all week long here in Philadelphia. To me, that is what could be a season-changing type of play where, it just gave the Cowboys a new life in that game. It gave them a kind of a glimpse of new life on the season. And I'll tell you what, sometimes, RJ, the best deals you make are the ones you don't make. If Odell Beckham Jr. comes into Dallas, T.Y. Hilton's probably not here. Maybe he is, but I'll tell you, this could be a resurrection for T.Y. Hilton's career and a nice jolt for the Cowboys offense here moving into the postseason.
I think that's really well said, and I appreciate you doing that because I know it's hard. And because if that moment doesn't happen, Cowboys probably go on to lose. Obviously, anything can happen. But it's a real fork in the road. Like, you could see it. I know no Eagles fan wants to say this, but that could be the first moment on the Super Bowl winning DVD, right? Like, man, this 3rd and 30, like you said, it's the one life that you need, and then you start picking more up along the way. And it doesn't happen with Odell. Michael Gallup has kind of been the Cowboys' deep threat for a little while. He doesn't have like a Deshaun Jackson sort of deep threat skill set, but he's really, really great at that. But he's obviously been coming back from a torn ACL that he suffered almost a year ago, and it just hasn't been there. He hasn't been the same guy since returning, and that obviously takes some time. And Odell, for all his talent, probably wouldn't have added that, at least not on Christmas Eve. And so that's T.Y. Hilton's thing, right? I mean, that was the longest pass that Dak Prescott has thrown in a very long time. They just haven't had that element to their offense. And, I don't know that you plan on something, being necessary on 3rd and 30, but when you need it, I mean, suddenly you have T.Y. Hilton when you didn't before. So, yeah, I mean, it really was a moment of fate kind of smiling upon the Cowboys and them taking advantage of what they could with their own skill set. It's one of those things I think people will remember T.Y. Hilton on Christmas Eve forever, regardless of how this Cowboys season ends.
Yeah, definitely a historic play for this Cowboys season. Now, you mentioned Dak, who he's owned the Eagles of late, and he's had the NFC East. I think he's like 27-6 as a starter in the NFC East. I think he's won 8 of the last 9 against the Eagles. So there's some kind of maybe mental psyche going on there. I'll tell you what, this team is starting to look like a contender at the right moment. I wanted to ask you, though, about Dak Prescott, because I noticed, like, going into that game, he actually had to come out and cut off one of the media guys and said, yo, not for nothing, like, I'm pretty mentally tough, and not to brag about myself, but I'm pretty mentally tough. And I said, well, what does Dak Prescott got to stand up here and say all that? And I guess he's been getting all kinds of harassment all on social media. I saw some unkind Eagles fans attack him. Is this something that Dak Prescott deals with on a week-to-week basis, RJ?
I would say so. And I know this annoys every other fan base, but life is just a little bit different when you're the Cowboys, and certainly when you're the Cowboys quarterback or the Cowboys head coach. We talked about Mike McCarthy, right? And that's just kind of the case for Dak. I mean, as good as you are, people are always going to clap back and be like, yeah, well, you're 1-3 in the playoffs. Yeah, well, this team hasn't done it since 1995. Like, there's just always somebody who wants to have fun at the Cowboys' expense. And so, the comment that the random person made was really unfortunate, really obviously deplorable. And that went beyond football, but people are always critical of him in a football sense. And, last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, the Cowboys lost to the Jaguars. That game ended on a pick 6. And, everybody can sit here and just kind of freeze frame and show the placement of the ball from Dak Prescott. But you've got people, who cares? It's a pick 6, blah, blah, blah. And that's where, I mean, I'm very happy for Jalen Hurts in that he's having this remarkable season, and his fan base, at least as far as I experience it, would die for him. Like, I'm sad that Dak doesn't have that same loyalty from his fans. I'm sad that Mike McCarthy doesn't the way that Ric Serritella does. Like, Eagles fans are totally willing to line up for their dudes. And, Cowboys have a lot of fans. They have fans who are really impatient and really want to win and really want to dominate teams and other opponents and whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, Dak has, since he's returned, the Cowboys have scored more points than anybody in the NFL. Since he's returned, they have lost all but 2 games, and both of those featured double-digit collapses by his defense that happened in overtime on the road. And you could sit here and contextualize it all and explain it all, but at the end of the day, people are going to say, yeah, well, they're trailing the Eagles by 2 games or whatever. Like, there's always something, and maybe someday, he'll win the Super Bowl. But there will be some sort of slide or some sort of comment that somebody's going to have and be like, well, it took him 8 years to do it. It took him 7 years. It took him 10 years. So what? It doesn't matter. A real champion would have done it in his first year, first, second year, whatever.
Talking to RJ Ochoa, bloggingtheboys.com, one of the best sites when it comes to Cowboys coverage, and the backup plan in the chat room. It's not the same for every team. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, go Google what some of the Eagles fans were tweeting at Dak Prescott. It is not apply to every team. I think it's a little bit different. The Eagles fans crossed the boundary. That was out of bounds. That crossed the line of personal space, in my opinion. So, hey, one other guy under the spotlight, and I would say Dallas is a little bit different nature of the beast when it comes to the media pressure. I watched some of these press conferences. McCarthy goes for 30, 40 minutes. These are not softball questions. He's under the gun. They're firing live bullets. It's a firing squad down there. And one guy that's also constantly under the microscope is Micah Parsons. Now, he takes a lot of heat here in Philadelphia. The stat box wasn't exactly stat filled with tackles and tackles for loss or sacks, but I thought Micah still had an impact in that game. I thought he did adequate against the run. Didn't have the quote unquote pressures or sacks. I know he was kind of moonlighting and offsetting the loss of Van Der Esch. I did see one play where, he ran at Minshew, which avoided Minshew finding an open receiver in the back of the end zone there. So while it didn't exactly look great in the box score, Micah Parsons still had an impact in this game.
Yeah, he did. Micah has had such a short NFL career, but it's obviously been so great to this point. And so it's kind of strange when he doesn't have some sort of like superhero, Super Saiyan God mode type of play. Like that's just kind of been normal for him. And so, yeah, it's like, well, he doesn't have 3 sacks. Something must be wrong. The reality is the Cowboys have played some sneaky athletes as of late. They obviously had a close, kind of call against the Houston Texans, but Jeff Driscoll kind of mitigated the Cowboys pass rush with his athleticism coming in for Davis Mills. Trevor Lawrence, obviously a talented player. Gardner Minshew, as you know, is definitely athletic and can definitely kind of handle things. I still don't think Gardner Minshew is getting enough credit for how well he played last Saturday. But so the Cowboys are trying to combat that, trying to find ways to get home. They only have 1 sack over the last 3 games. That was Micah on Trevor Lawrence for what it's worth. And now they've got to figure that out. That's going to be the difference maker for them. Every Cowboys fan, so basically since Micah has arrived, has said, you know what, this has been the one thing that has kind of held the Cowboys back in the playoffs. They've never been able to get after Aaron Rodgers or whoever it was. They needed to have this staunch pass rush, and they had it, and it's kind of disappeared right now. And so I don't know that we see a ton of that tonight. The Cowboys are in a fortunate position where, they know they have a ticket to the dance secured. They technically have something to play for tonight, but the moment Philly wins, assuming that happens, they're locked into the 5 seed. And so if that happens, I really doubt that Micah would play next week in Washington. And some of that, I think, depends on what they're playing for, too, based on what happens to them this week. But the Cowboys got to get right because Tom Brady loves to get the ball out quickly. I know the Bucs are really bad, but he's still Tom Brady, and that's definitely got a lot of people spooked.
Yeah, and it says here, Micah Parsons, since they've been keeping track of the sack stat, 1982, the last 40 years, I'm sure you're already on this, but for our listening audience, only 2 guys in the history have had 13 sacks in their first 2 seasons. One of them, Aldon Smith, and the other, the great late Reggie White. Pretty good company for Micah Parsons to be in early on in his career. Let's get into this matchup. Thursday Night Football. It's a short week. It's a get right week for the Cowboys. This Titans team has been stumbling, fumbling, bumbling. I think they were like 7-4. Now I look up, they're 7-8. The John Robinson fallout has kind of created somewhat of a chaotic situation. Malik Willis will be getting the start. Ryan Tannehill out for the year. Every time I check, RJ, the point spread keeps going up every morning. It went from 9. I think it's up to 12 or 13. This could be a case in the second half where the Cowboys are getting their rest on.
I mean, it has the kind of feel and the vibe of a preseason game. I'm not sure. I'm sure you are aware that the Titans have nothing to play for. Whether they win or lose, their playoff position is not impacted. They have to win next Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if they do, they win the AFC South. If they don't, they're obviously out. And so I thought it was really interesting. Mike Vrabel, as soon as their loss of the Texans happened last Saturday, he said, yeah, the fact that we have nothing to play for Thursday is probably going to come into play. Derrick Henry unlikely to play for that reason. And I don't think anybody blames Mike Vrabel, right? Like, you got to win one game. Why risk anything tonight against the Cowboys? And that sucks for Amazon. That sucks for people who have tickets and things like that. That sucks for fantasy players who have Derrick Henry going in their title game this particular week. But in that same vein, I really don't think Tony Pollard's going to play. He hasn't practiced all week. It's a short week. And again, the Cowboys are talented enough to beat this Titans team in general, but certainly if the Titans are calling off the dogs, so to speak. And so this game matters like 1% to the Cowboys, no percent to the Titans. And so I think everybody's cool to shake hands, have some fun, enjoy a halftime show, get out, get warm, and move on to week 18.
Yeah, I did see, I predicted the Texans to win the game last week because I did see they had 9 players ruled out, another 6 players that were questionable.
They're beat up.
Yeah, going into the Texans game. And then, I saw the same thing, that they're going to be resting a lot of the players in this game. So Derrick Henry, is he not going to play at all, RJ, or do we not know that?
His technical designation is doubtful. But, I mean, reading between the tea leaves, he's not going to play. And for what it's worth, Mike Vrabel's done that before. I think it was 3 years ago. The Titans were playing the Saints in the penultimate week again, kind of the same sort of circumstance, and they rested Derrick Henry entirely in that game. And again, how could you not? You got to win next week and not this. If it's not even a matter of, they could win tonight, and if they win next week, they go from the 4 seed to the 3 seed. No, they literally have nothing to improve their playoff positioning if they were to win or lose tonight. It's truly an insignificant game. I know you play to win the game. I know all the cliches, but you got to look out for yourself. And a coaching staff that saw the GM get fired, I'm sure that they're trying to protect all their interests and make sure that they win the division next Sunday against Jacksonville.
All right. RJ Ochoa here on the Football Playbook. Derrick Henry there, 319 carries, leads the NFL. So why not get him some rest? We got to pick your brain on the way out here, RJ, and get the Blogging the Boys NFC Power Rankings for what it's worth here as it sits here today on December 29th. What does and we'll keep it to the NFC Power Rankings. Okay. What does the RJ Ochoa NFC Power Rankings look like as of today?
I'd still put the Eagles, obviously, number one. I mean, I think the Cowboys proved a lot. I mean, I think the Eagles proved a lot playing that game as closely as they did without Jalen Hurts. And it's so difficult to contextualize, like, what kind of number one are they? Because, I mean, what does Jalen look like? I know that's the question that everybody's, been asking. What's he going to look like if he doesn't play for 5 weeks? What's he going to look like if he has to play next week if Philly loses? I mean, it is a really strange situation that the Eagles have to navigate. But nevertheless, I'd still put the Eagles number one. I'd put the Cowboys number two, but I respect the Vikings a lot more than most people. I know everybody talks about their point differential and how shy it is and whatever the case may be. They've won a lot of games. They've played some incredible, fourth quarters. So I'd put the Vikings right there behind them. After that, it's a really sizable drop off. I mean, and that's where a lot of Cowboys fans, I don't want to face Tom Brady. I don't want to face this. You're going to face somebody that's going to make you uncomfortable in the playoffs, no matter what happens. But actually, now that I think about it, I completely forgot the 49ers exist. I would put the Eagles, the Niners, and then the Cowboys, now that I think about it. So 1, 2, 3, 4 for me: Philly, San Francisco, Dallas, Minnesota. I think that there's little gaps in between each of them, obviously. And I say this with all due respect, I'm way more afraid of the Niners, though, than I am the Eagles. I mean, you mentioned it. Dak Prescott has shown over the course of his career, no matter what the circumstances are, he can have success in the NFC. It's like he can do it at home, on the road, with somebody out, with somebody in, whatever. The Niners own the Cowboys, though. I mean, the Niners punched the Cowboys in the mouth last year, and it took them a long time to recover from that. They were really sore losers about it. They blamed officiating. I mean, they really kind of were broken in a lot of senses, and they really kind of molded themselves after the Niners. They wanted to get tough and they wanted to get physical. And so that matchup really, really, really scares me. I don't know if the Cowboys were to obviously make it that far, if I would want to play them in the division round, if I would want to play them in the title game. But I will tell you that there are some Cowboys fans kind of rooting for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to get in and take care of the Vikings in the first round, and then let Aaron Rodgers go be a mercenary and take care of the Eagles so the Cowboys don't have to worry about it. It'd be fun, but it would be terrifying. Don't get me wrong.
If the Packers sneak in, it is going to get fun come playoff time, and it's going to be fascinating. It really is. That 49ers team is about as hot as it gets. I think they're on like a 9-game win streak, They've got the Raiders and the Cardinals. I mean, they're going to be on a high going into the playoffs.
And there's so many Cowboys fans like wondering what happens if Dallas can win. There's no way Dallas can win the 1 seed. I mean, maybe they could win the East, but it's definitely possible that San Francisco or Minnesota to that degree. This Eagles Saints game is one of the more interesting games of the whole season. I mean, because that could really change just so much. And I'm sure your job would be a lot of fun next week if the Eagles were to lose that game. It would be quite a stressful few days.
I'll tell you what. If the Eagles lose to the Saints, this final week of the NFL season is going to be 4th of July in January is what it's going to turn out to be. RJ Ochoa, bloggingtheboys.com. Give us the Twitter handle, all the great content. I see you got a new podcast that just came out. What else you got on deck over there at Blogging the Boys?
Yeah, I mean, on Twitter and Instagram at RJ Ochoa, those are just kind of hubs for everything I do. We've got videos and podcasts coming out anywhere you consume content. You can search for Blog on the Boys. We had our Madden simulation drop yesterday for tonight's game against the Titans. I will say that the score was off, but last week's Madden simulation did have the Cowboys getting a 4th down stop against the Eagles to close it out. So generally speaking, I mean, the simulation has been somewhat close in some capacities. And so we're just kind of excited to get this Thursday game over. And then to sit back, relax, and yeah, everybody root on their fantasy players and root for the Saints. I'm ready for chaos. I want to get through tonight, lots of peace, and then let everything break all weekend long.
All right, what is the simulation saying, by the way? I have to ask.
Cowboys won 20-14. But what was strange about that was they were up 17-14 in the final seconds and kicked the field goal. Like literally, despite the fact that they had a 3-point lead. They kicked the field goal to make it 20-14. I guess, I don't know what the spread was in this fictitious world, but they wanted to cover is kind of the motivation that I understand.
All right, we'll see how it turns out. And I don't know, we're maybe heading for Eagles Cowboys round 3 matchup, RJ. Maybe we'll circle back to you next year, which is only 2 days away, but definitely greatly appreciate the time. Safe travels this weekend, the rest of the way. And, feel free to reach out with anything you may need from our end.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. Have a happy new year and health, wealth, and happiness, but pure and utter sports misery for you guys, obviously.
Right back at you, RJ. Happy new year to you. Good friend of the show, RJ Ochoa, checking in from bloggingtheboys.com. Guys, I guess some of you may have missed it. The Dak Prescott comments that the Eagles, I don't want to say fans with the plural because it was just one Eagle fan that I saw on social media that I felt crossed the boundary. There's a certain personal line, and this person happened to tag. I think tagging players is kind of cornball and cheesy to begin with, but this particular fan tagged Dak Prescott and was like, "Yo, I'm so happy your mom died. I'm happy that your brother died." Dak's brother committed suicide, by the way. And then he took it to another level. I hope your other brother, Chaz or Chet, is next to die. Listen, this great game of football is about fun. There's no reason or need to ever take it there. And so I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't see Jalen Hurts getting tagged with death threats or people openly rooting for his family members to die. If it is out there, I apologize. I missed it, but I just don't think there's any room for that nonsense here on this platform anyway. The Football Playbook, Part 82 edition here on this Thursday, December 29th. Big shout out to all of our guests today. Dane Vandernat, Executive Director of the NFLPA Bowl. Neil Stratton from InsideTheLeague.com. RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com. I see a lot of the Cowboys fans came back to chop it up with us. Hey, make sure you come back tomorrow. Coach John DeFilippo is scheduled to join us. Who knows? We might have an Eddie Kratz sighting. Maybe we'll pop on Gail Saunders from fourthandjawn.com. The tailgate takeovers this Sunday. It's going down 6 a.m. Parking lot G. Adams Exploits is telling me it's going to be 50 and sunny. Oh, baby, buckle up. You might see RIC in a T-shirt for the tailgate takeover. I'll have a ganol. William Stark. All right, Oceana, you want to get us out of here? I hear your backup plan. Thank you for the comments and chiming in. And hey, We're going to get out of here. What do you want to tell the great people at home, Oceana?
Merry Christmas.
No, Happy New Year. Christmas is over here. And we'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Go Birds.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.